Give it up for our last tell. Y'all ready? You ready? Give it up for Pete Koschnick. Am I close on that, Pete? All right. Me too.
Thank you. When I was 23, I got my ex-girlfriend pregnant. It was, one of those things where we broke up, and a year later, she graduated from college, and she threw a big party, and she invited me to the party, and I went to the party, and I got drunk at the party, and 3 days later, we emerged from her apartment really satisfied. And I should have known something was up, because we walked into the bar, and the first thing I hear is, "Hey, Ruth, you pregnant yet?" And she was. So we decided to get married, ignoring the past, and have this baby. And because we were old hippies, we decided we were going to have a home birth. There's a lot of reasons why, but it was only because we were hippies. And the problem was we lived in Seattle at the time. This is 1981. And at that time, it was illegal in the state of Washington for a midwife to deliver a baby. However, it was not illegal for the father to deliver a baby. The reasoning being that a man whose entire contribution to this effort so far had been to go, "Ugh," and then fall asleep, was infinitely more qualified than a woman who'd spent her whole adult life studying how to birth babies and had been there for 1,000 births. It's the West Coast, what you gonna do? So the decision was, I would, what they call catch the baby, and in the event that it was necessary, I'd put my fingers up in there and turn the baby or move the cord or whatever, and Miriama, our midwife, would supervise. And it was going great. We were doing Lamaze classes. I was scared shitless for 9 months. It was just, we were moving ahead. And then I was working as a carpenter in Seattle. And at this point, there was no Microsoft in Seattle, and Boeing had lost a contract in the city. There was literally a billboard that said, "Last person out of Seattle, turn off the lights." And it was really beat. And as a carpenter, I was a foreman, and we'd, hire carpentry assistants, and we'd get 300 or 400 guys would show up, some with PhDs in engineering. It was really beat. And I was living in an apartment that my boss owned, because a lot of contractors own houses. And everything was fine, and we planned our wedding, and we could only get the whole family together at New Year's Eve. And we thought, great, our anniversary will always be a big drunken brawl. Unfortunately, that meant my wife was 8 months pregnant at the time we got married. She didn't wear white. It was green velour, as I recall. And at the party, my boss and his girlfriend got into a fight, and his girlfriend left with my brother, who was supposed to be the bartender. Pissed us both off. Pissed off my boss so much that he took 2 months' worth of payroll and went to Mexico. And when he got there, he didn't tell anybody that he had not paid the mortgage in the apartment house for 4 months. So all of a sudden I was without a job, without a house, and an 8-month pregnant brand new wife. So we moved to a cabin that my parents had on one of the San Juan Islands. It was 2 hours worth of driving and 2 ferry boat rides away. So it took about 6 hours to get there. And we met with the midwife, and we decided we would have the home birth at her house, at her home, which negated about 3/4 of the reasons we had given our parents about why we were having a home birth. But anyway, and she rented rooms out like a lot of people, and she had a room that was empty, and there was even a little full-size bed in there, and we set the bed up and everything, and for 2 weeks we would go once a week and visit. And the last time we went to visit, she was like, "Oh, it's getting pretty close, and okay." And we, I had this huge amount of tile that I had found in the house. The cabin didn't have running water or power, so I was really working fast to get that done. And so I took all this tile, loaded it into the truck, drove my wife back, over the 2 ferry boats and up, and we went to bed, and immediately I felt all warm and cozy, and I thought, oh crap, I've wet the bed. And then my wife went, "Oh my God, my water's burst. We need to go back to Seattle." And you never saw a guy unload tile faster in your life than I. And we hop in the back and we drive back, and the contractions are coming. And oh my God, we're not going to make it. And then by the time we got on the second ferry, the contractions had stopped. It's first birth, they take a while. And she was fine. I fell asleep on the seat. She walked around and talked to all the sailors on the ferry boat. We got to there and, moved in. And Miriama was this wonderful lady, and she had, her lover there named Amy. And Amy was great. She just cracked jokes the whole time. She did yo mama jokes, but she did yo belly jokes. Your belly's so big, your belly button gets home 15 minutes before you do, Or, your belly's so big, your stretch marks got stretch marks, I just kept it up the whole time, while my wife's going, this all this stuff. And there was a guy there who had just rented a room for Miriama named Bob, and Bob was a bus driver, and he'd never seen a birth. And my ex-wife is very exhibitionist, so she was like, yeah, you can come in, you can hold the mirror so I can see myself give birth. So Bob is there, he's sitting on the end of the bed with a mirror, and I'm sitting on the bed, ready to catch the baby. And Miriama's there and Amy's there, and all of a sudden the bed collapses. And we all jump down to lift the bed up, and my wife goes, the baby's coming! So we drop the bed again, so boom, hit it again. The baby starts to come. First it crowns, which means a little part of its head, and it looks like a giant diseased prune kind of pokes out. And then all of a sudden, and there's Uncle Fester from the Addams Family staring at me. And is it a grounder? I don't know. Anyway, and then the most amazing thing in the world happens because the baby has to rotate to deliver the shoulders. And this part of the woman's body becomes a whole entity unto itself. And the baby rotates, and then whoosh, out comes the most beautiful, slimy, snot-covered little girl you ever saw in your life. Oh, I was so in love instantly, and I looked up, and my wife is tired, but she's just filled with wonder, and she's looking, and I look at Miriama, and she's got that satisfied smile, and she's checking the baby, and Amy is smiling, and then I turn around and look at Bob, the bus driver, and he's like, thank you very much.